Welcome back to the Weekly Manga Podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about all of your favorite ongoing Japanese manga. This week, we are going to cover chapter 107 of My Dress Up Darling, and boy, it's a big one. Well, we will also be discussing a new Exorcist manga series, but wait, this one is a bit different. That's called Imperial Cabinet, which premiered on Manga Plus. And last but not least, we'll be using our mouths to discuss Chainsaw Man chapter 174 for As Long as They Last. All that manga news and more coming right up. Hello again, my name is Bruce. I am the proprietor of the White Gray Black YouTube channel, and this week I am joined again by my constant co-host, Gautam.
Hello, hello.
Special shout out and thanks, of course, to our Patreon subscribers, Yaji Black. If you want to have your name read at the top of the episode and see some bonus content, check out patreon.com/WGBmanga. Keep in mind, it is only $3. With that, let's get into Sono Bisque Doll, also known as My Dress Up Darling in the West. I have kept up with this one over the past year. It has been a decent chunk of time since I've brought it. Gautam, are you caught up? I know that you read this most recent chapter.
No, I'm not caught up.
Okay.
I think I've read 40 chapters of this.
Yeah, I'll give you and the readers, listeners, a quick catch up. Basically, the big things that happened here is Gojo and Marin. Gojo made a costume for her based on I think it's a light novel or maybe a manga. It's a manga. With like this sort of demon seductress type girl who's like described in very specific ways. And the author kind of had, I think, like judged the anime really negatively or something. So there was like a lot of, not really pressure, but there was a lot of implication of like, oh, nobody can visually capture this character. And then Gojo, he makes the costume, she wears it to like what is essentially Comiket, or Akon, or not Akon. Akon's an American thing, but she wears it to a big convention. Everyone is like blown away. She blows up on social media. Gojo is kind of like looking on from the distance because he's not really a part of the like photography and that kind of angle of Marin kind of doing the cosplay thing. After that, there's kind of a little bit of confusion, obviously, because it's a romance, and that always happens. Where Marin thought that she was essentially taking away Gojo's time from making the Bisque dolls, which is like what she thought he wanted to do, and she thought that she was like making him worse at them and impacting his life negatively. I don't know. It doesn't completely line up because it's a little illogical, just like all romance misunderstandings are. But that essentially leads us to this moment where Marin was kind of like, okay, go away. Like, you don't work with me anymore. I'm wasting your time. And like it opens up with this is the first page chapter. It's like, I won't ask you to make costumes for me anymore. And Gojo's like, wait a minute. There's more to it than this. So yeah, there's a lot of, she's like, I'm burdening you. I'm getting in your way. He's like, you've never been a burden. It's like, what are you talking about? And yeah, Gojo is like, obviously this isn't true. We as readers also kind of know, like, obviously this is not true. He says like, I made your costumes because I wanted to make them. I refused to do anything I couldn't do, right? If there was, there's some hair, wig stuff where he was like, I don't know how to do that. Somebody else needs to do that. He says it was all my own decision. It goes like, I really like this chapter visually too. I wish I could have grabbed kind of more panels from it, but I really like the visual storytelling that Shinichi Fukuda does in My Dress Up Darling. I think the paneling for something that's like a romance drama is like, there's some really cool stuff. It like transfers into like a black background whenever things get like really serious, and it like creates an ominous mood that's like something so simple, even though we usually associate those black backgrounds with like flashbacks. I think it's a super effective tool to be like, they were talking, and then Gojo essentially is going to be like, okay, I'll tell her how I really feel, and that means that we won't be friends anymore. but I have to say it because or else she'll be confused. And it like turns to this black background and they kind of like not fight with each other, but I just really like that visually. Yeah, so Marin here is like, you made a bad face at Comic-Con. What did that mean? And we as readers don't know what this means yet either. So I think it was good and interesting to hear him kind of say it. Also, I don't know if you've ever been through this. I know this is something that I went through like back in high school, which I guess these are high school kids, so it kind of makes sense, where it's like, oh, I'm really good friends with this girl, and if I tell her I like her, then we won't be friends anymore. And so it's like the risk reward of that is like, well, I'd rather stay friends with her than risk it and ruin it. So like, I get this. This is like a very classic romance thing.
Yeah, this happens, I think, at all ages, where it's like risk the friendship kind of dice roll you make.
Yeah.
It gets easier in adulthood, but it is very much a serious thing in high school.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is definitely like, I went through this, I don't know, 2 or 3 times in high school.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, again, like visually, I like this where there's sort of like an internal monologue thing, and you have the things he's saying at the same time where he's like, don't say it, just don't say it. He like literally says like, if I say it, we can't be together anymore. And he's again kind of weighing the like, weighing the risk of telling her how he feels with, well, if I tell her how she feels and she doesn't return it, then I've lost her forever. And that is more painful than just being friends forever. Right. So, but yeah, I like the motivation here where he says like, I like was jealous. He's like, I never really thought about it. He's like, I was the one who asked you to sort of like dress up and do all this cosplay things. But, he basically goes and just like, I saw all of these people looking at you and, you know, you were looking and showing off for them, and it made me jealous because I like you and I want you to cosplay for me only, basically. Not really, but he saw her sort of being the center of attention, and he wanted to be there and giving her attention, I think, which is, again, classic.
It's like addressing kind of like the unfair, like irrational jealousy he had. That makes sense. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, and then again, more kind of voiceover, internal voice here. He's like, it's all over now. I knew I'd hurt her if I told her I wanted to stop. It's like, he says like, I know because I know how badly it would hurt if someone said it to me about like all that stuff. And then again, like these 2 pages, especially, I really like. I mean, one, the artist I think is just, I mean, like is really good. Like this is a really, for someone who draws like a romance, it's basically rom-com. There's a little bit of drama in it, but I think that's the romance part of it. Like, this is a really good artist. And I think the last time I brought it was when they were doing one of the photo shoot that's kind of referenced in this chapter. And that also visually was like absolutely stunning. Like there's just some really, really good art, really good paneling in here. Yeah, I like that we get just sort of like mental images. You just get like 4 pictures of Marin, and then he's just like, I love you. And hey, it's the confession chapter. It's the year of confessions. So yeah, that's what this chapter is. This is great. I am waiting any day now to hear the announcement of like 4 chapters left of Zona Bisque.
Yeah, I know, right?
I hope not. This one really seems like one that could definitely keep going the distance for a lot more chapters. I really hope it does. I would be very disappointed if this chooses to wrap up soon, but we'll see. Yeah, and again, this is sort of a, Gojo's very unsure of himself, even though he's very talented. He doesn't see it. He's very, has very low self-esteem, I would say, which reflects in his feelings here, where he's like, it's like, sorry for being so selfish. It's like, I'll keep like, he's like, I think I'm going to always be in love with you. So that like, if that's wrong, then I'll go and we never have to see each other again, blah, blah, blah. But the end of the chapter, I mean, like this is the satisfying part. The confession is great. But Marin's reaction to it is like even better. She just like immediately kisses him, and then she like flips out in her like funny girly, like, you know, accented thing where she's just like, I don't know. It's just like the whole thing of it is great. She just like turns into the kind of Gyaru talk. Yeah. And then the last panel is them just like literally making out, like knocked over in the front. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is like, to me, this is like a perfect confession chapter. Like, I think it showed off both of their characters really well. I think that it all makes complete sense. You know, people always complain about manufactured drama or whatever, but like, you know, drama is what makes, you know, romance stories at least fun. You know, you don't necessarily always need drama in your real life romance, but in a movie or a TV show or a manga, I think you do need some drama. So I don't know. I love this. I think this is a great confession chapter. I liked it visually. Character stuff was great. So yeah.
I think romance manga have this like weird thing where people hate the misunderstandings of it all. And I kind of agree. The misunderstandings are lame because it's like anything can be solved with basic communication. Like they're usually things that can be solved with basic communication.
Yeah.
And this chapter did that. It had basic communication and it got resolved. I wonder if there is a possibility to have romance manga without stupid misunderstandings, though.
I think
like
it's
being the focal point.
Yeah, I mean there are a couple you get where like what was the telework Yotabanashi? Like that one didn't have a whole lot of like
Yeah.
it didn't have any like big misunderstandings. It was still romance. Stuff like that, more like adult featured romance, I think has it. And honestly, this one I would say isn't so much of like
but
if they just talk to each other.
Didn't need the drama because one, they were both adults, and two, it was like a short run series. So I think you need drama when something is running long. Yeah, because I think like Sono Bisque Doll needs it because without stakes, like people will lose interest. That's just how it is, right?
Yeah.
So and I'm not saying this is bad or manufactured drama because I don't know. I'm not caught up. But like just in general, like Kimi no Todoke, is that what it was?
Kimi no Todoke, yeah.
Yeah, that one was like so immensely frustrating because of the manufactured drama that like they didn't talk to each other for like a year or something because
of
like a misunderstanding.
That one, I think there's a difference between something like Kimi no Todoke, where it's like these two people could have a very simple conversation with each other and it would resolve everything. The difference between
I like this. This is not like because they just talked about it, right? And and they resolved it that way. And so it wasn't even like a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control. That's the frustrating thing for most readers. This is like refreshing in that it didn't spiral out of control because they had basic communication skills. But I wonder, right? Like, is there? It's just like a facet of rom-coms that are long running that you need to have a misunderstanding.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing that I think that you kind of hit on briefly that I think is key is that the frustrating part is when it's a very simple conversation that would resolve everything. And I think that what sets this apart, and you don't really have the context for this because you aren't fully caught up. But I saw people getting frustrated at this and I didn't really get it because to me, it was not just a simple conversation that was needed to be had. And as we see in this chapter, like it wasn't just a simple like they had that's like a kind of a complicated, difficult like thing that had to be said. This isn't just like, oh, I thought that you liked another girl, but you liked me even though we're dating. Like that's like a simple thing. That's like, no, I don't like her. I like you. Like boom, over. This is like, I was jealous. I was feeling this way. I feel that if I tell you that, you would like, it's a little bit more complex. So I sort of understand the drama of it a lot more.
I think it was complex for him because he's like projecting what he thinks she will respond with in regards to, it's like, oh, if I say that I was jealous and was like trying to monopolize her attention and kind of ruin her dreams that way, she'll hate me and resent me for it. It's like, and she didn't feel that way at all, right? So he's complicating it, and she's absolutely not.
Well, she did previously. I guess she is. She did in previous chapters, but yeah.
Okay, got it. I thought this was like a good insight into an anxious person's brain. Mm-hmm. Where they're just spinning the wheels with assumptions of what the other person might say or might think, when in actuality they have no idea, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It was a good chapter. It makes me want to catch up to it.
I think you should. I think I think Haniel is like the character she cosplayed. That whole section of this series is, I think, probably the best arc that they've ever done. Sort of leading up to it's basically the arc that just sort of leads right up into this. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really, really good. I think there's an arc, I think like right before that part, or maybe two arcs before, where it's like they all dress up as maid characters and everyone like looks different, and I couldn't tell who anyone was, and I thought that arc was miserable garbage. But right after that, it's like and it's a monthly series, so it's like, okay, it was probably only bad for like 3 or 4 months. But then after that, it's into the Haniel stuff, and I think it's really, really good. So yeah, I'm all in on My Dress Up Darling. I think it's great.
Good to hear. Yeah, I think 1 week arc doesn't matter if it's not representative of the series as a whole.
Yeah, and it came back after,
Ranger
which is
Reject, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's our classic. I had a one bad arc. On the second main arc is bad and lasts too long, and then after that, it's all gas. So
yeah, all gas, no breaks, baby. Real good.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think this is. I'm trying to think what other we had. Nagatoro had a confession this year, which I thought was good. I think this one's better. I mean, Dress Up Darling is like a little bit more adult than Nagatoro, even though they're like the same age, I think. I don't know. Maybe it's just the art makes him look older.
That's kind of surprising. Gojo looks like he's like a 22-year-old
is
guy.
like 6 feet tall. So
yeah, he looks old.
But I'm pretty sure they're like 17. I think they're either seniors or juniors in high school, so they're either 17 or 18. I don't remember. But
got it.
I think maybe they have their 18th birthday. I don't know. But yeah, no, I think this is great. I think this is an excellent romance. Again, begging for it not to be immediately ending or anything. So I hope this continues. I think that there's a lot of fun these two characters can still have with cosplaying. I think there's a lot of stuff that hasn't been resolved from the last arc with Haniel. I think that Gojo has more heights to reach with producing cosplay stuff. I think Marin does too. I think I would be kind of disappointed if they stopped this anytime soon. So
I don't know. I think it's probably approaching its end, right? Because I don't know how long after a confession a romance series can live if there are no side romances.
Yeah.
I think Kaguya did like a really good job of showing them dating. But even then, romance mangas, like the crux of it is the will they, won't they?
Yeah.
So this is a really good payoff, but I don't know how long it keeps going afterwards.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't end immediately, I think that's super lame.
Yeah, I guess I would hope it goes for like another year at least, which is like 3 more volumes, 12 chapters or so. Because I do think that the series has done a good job of getting me invested in kind of Marin and Gojo's, their kind of rise to fame together as like a costume maker and a cosplayer. And this last arc is kind of seems more like a explosive moment because she kind of blows up on social media, and the costume, everyone's talking about how good the costume is in the pictures and social media, and the like author of the series she was cosplaying from like noticed it and was like, that's pretty good. So I feel like there's what I am invested in now that they are, technically together, I would say, is sort of like, what is their arc now with like sort of their quote unquote professional lives, right? Like Gojo figuring out if he wants to do full-time cosplay or make bisque dolls or do both. Marin, probably becoming some kind of model. They aren't there yet. So I feel like it would be a good time for them to sort of reach those heights or get a little bit closer before it ended, but who knows?
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I am excited to find out. I really like the series. Yeah, and the last panel is them just making out, which I think is great. Cool. Anything else on My Dress Up Darling here?
Nope.
Cool. Let's talk about this interesting new series popped up on Manga Plus this week. This series is called Imperial Cabinet. This is by Fumiji Yuba. This one is interesting, Gautam. Why don't you just tell me your initial feelings on it and what you thought did good, what you thought it missed on?
Sure, yeah. I thought it was... I don't know. It was weird. I thought it was a bad first chapter, but I think the series could be interesting. Essentially, the first chapter was pretty much all world building, and not too much action at all, or character stuff, really. There's some character stuff for the main character, but it was primarily world building, which is interesting, but I don't know if it's just like, it's not a very strong first chapter. I don't know if people will like resonate with it. So I worry that like it'll have the Vibration Man issue where people bounce off on the first chapter and
I don't think it's that bad, but
yeah, maybe not. I thought it was just I thought it had interesting concepts, but I think characters need to be interesting in the first chapter more than the concepts themselves. I think other chapters are for world building. You need to make strong characters and make people love them, or at least be interested in them in the first chapter. I truly think you do, and it really didn't. So I don't know. I guess we'll see more on the characters in future chapters. Hopefully they're interesting, and it keeps the pace in regards to like having a cool world. But I think that's all I really know about the series is what the world is. I don't really know anything else. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I feel mostly the same. I think we're both kind of in the section of people who tend to prefer characters to be the thing that grab us and carry us through a story over plot or world building, even though I know that we both do appreciate those things when they show up. I did think this was interesting. I didn't think it was actively bad, but it was kind of like, this is not the style of chapter 1 that grabs me and that I enjoy. There were a lot of people I saw that were pretty positive on this. I do think the art in this is like really fucking good, like really exceptional art. And I do think that the main character is interesting. I think he's the one character that we got a little bit, we got to see a little bit of what kind of character he is and what he does. And I did kind of enjoy his straightforward, deadpan, kind of uncaring character. But yeah, it isn't even necessarily that the first chapter tried to do world building for me. I'm okay with them, being like, hey, here's my interesting world I've built. I just think that the execution of all the world building was really handled kind of poorly. And I'll sort of get into the chapter and start explaining why I think that. There are 6 pages at the start of this chapter that are just purely a narrator essentially telling us the state of this alternate world. And man, the issues kind of start here, right? They're listing all these years, right? Like December 7th, 2579, Imperial Era, a separatist spellcaster, stage of massive protest, blah, blah, blah. They're like going through all of this like political history. And then they're using this
real
is
quick.
Yeah.
Before you go on, just for some context, this is all summing up that spellcasters exist in the world.
Yeah.
Like that can use magic, and how that influences this alt history version of Earth.
Yeah, and all of that, and then you have this map on the left side, which is like unequivocally a map of Japan, but they have renamed all of it.
Including Japan itself to Yashima.
Yes. Yeah, Japan is called Yashima. I'm not familiar with every single prefecture in Japan, but I think every single one of them is renamed here because, I mean, the one big one that I know is Hokkaido as the big one at the top. That's renamed to like Hokushu or Hokure, like it has 2 names now. But I know that like Shizumi, I think is where Tokyo is, and that's not the name of Tokyo Prefecture or Saitama Prefecture, which I think is right next to it. So
and yeah, you're basically thinking to like, why just copy and paste a map of Japan and all of its like prefectures and just rename everything? How, like, to what end? What is that? Like, I don't know what that does at all. Right?
Well, and this is a particular type of fiction that is alt history, I guess, is what you could call it, even though it maybe is just a completely different, separate world. But a lot of stuff like this goes back to, like there are books that have reimagined World War II where the United Front has like mechs and the bad guys have creatures, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't remember, but there's stuff like that. Those are still considered quote unquote alt history text. So I would consider this alt history. I do think that something that bothers me in fantasy, like any kind of fantasy or sci-fi, is when you take sort of like a known quantity that you assume that your audience knows about and then renames it for no reason, which only really causes confusion. I mean, like later on in the chapter, we'll see that they do 6 pages of world building. They do that opening page, and then they do kind of 2 more here at the start of the chapter. These are just pictures, like these are converted manga pictures we've talked about in the past. These are pictures of Tokyo. in the modern age. So this story is being told in modern day Tokyo, but they have renamed Japan. They have renamed Tokyo. They have rewritten the history, which the rewritten history is the world building part. That's fine. I don't mind that. Spellcasters exist. Don't mind that. That's cool. I don't mind the alt history thing. I just think the way they went about it is like, why rename Japan? Why rename Tokyo? Like, why change all this stuff? I think it just leads to confusion and frustration. I'll bring up my example, which I will get comments and hate for. The example I always use for this is the Gom Jabbar from Dune. The Gom Jabbar is a poisoned knife. And if you read Dune, it kind of explains that to you, and it doesn't really. And they, you fear the Gom Jabbar. And they talk about it a bunch in the first, chapter or two or whatever it is. And you're like, oh, the Gom Jabbar, what is that? That sounds really dangerous. It's a poisoned knife. It is something we know about. I've heard authors say things like don't rename chairs. Like, if you're writing a fantasy book, don't rename chairs. Like, that's sort of the broad thing of like, a spoon is a spoon, a chair is a chair, a bed is a bed. Like, don't rename stuff like that, because the more of those things you introduce, the more confusing it is for your audience. And I think a lot of what this series did in world building, one, isn't done very well. They just tell us about it, right? It isn't sort of hinted at or woven into the story in any way. They just spend the first 8 pages of the manga telling us what the world building is, which I think is bad. And they're telling us essentially that I've renamed Japan, I've renamed Tokyo. It's the modern age, but it's also 600 years past what our modern age is. And so all of that stuff, I think, adds up to just sort of like a bunch of world building that is just why? Like, why do all this? And I don't know the answer.
Hey, I'm with you. That's lame. Well, we have Starbucks coffee over there, so that stayed kind of similar.
Oh, do you? And we have Tatsuya, which... Oh, yeah, Starbucks.
Yeah. I don't know why that changed, why that stayed the same, but that's not actually the world building I enjoyed. What I did enjoy, we'll keep going in the chapter.
I was about to say, the good world building, like, honestly, if they had just started with, I think, these pages without the first 6, it kind of would have been fine, right? Yeah, it would have been woven in enough, and you would have assumed, like, there's a lot of things that you can assume through it. Without those first 6 pages, those first 6 pages kind of set a bad tone.
They were clunky.
Yeah, really, really clunky intro. And then, like we talk about how important chapter 1s are, the first couple pages of your chapter 1s are also important. But this page especially, I think the art, the design of these bugs is pretty cool. These demons or whatever they are. Art and shading here, I think, is really good. Essentially, guy gets attacked. The local police kind of lock down an area, and they call in what do they actually call them? The Exorcist, like, literally, this is an Exorcist manga. Spoilers.
They're just called spellcasters.
Spellcasters, yeah. Bale Beasts is the name of the bad guys, yeah. But they call in these guys, and again, like, all of everything from here on out is kind of like pretty good to okay, I would say. I think these guys have cool designs. I like their sort of like half robe, half trench coat, kind of overcoat.
That is very
stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, partially military too.
And this is like the world building I do like, where it's both like a religious, spiritual kind of aesthetic, but modern. They look like holy operatives, which they are.
Yeah.
And I think the cool part is that in regards to exorcism, what's unique about it is that they have a very clinical and methodical and scientific methodology and approach, while still using like incantations and like sake purification and all of these represent like these religious, I don't know what the word is, but like
ritualistic kind of
emotion fueled like methods to like kill the monsters, utilized in like a scientific approach. It's like a mixture between like cold and calculated and religious and meaningful,
Yeah, I agree with you totally. I think it's a really interesting blend of that kind of old Shinto mysticism and kind of a modern military aesthetic. Like, those two things are very much mixed here, where, you mentioned, they talk about like, they're on their headsets and they're talking like, oh, group 3 is clearing building 3 and group 2's going to building 1 with me, and they communicate and they're like, oh yeah, sake purification finished, like you mentioned. And here, you see that our main character kind of orders his dudes to like, oh, fire your guns at the Bale Beast, and it doesn't work. And then he like starts saying this really cool incantation, by the way, where he's like, it's like bow and arrow, armor of iron, shrine of prayer, part the skies and streak across the earth. In due course, the celestial crossroads shall unveil. Shin in 24th blade, form 3, pedal stride, tempest. Too long of an attack, maybe, but a cool one nonetheless.
And like this is actually, it reminds me just like Ghost Chasers of SCPs, where they're like just a scientific organization, but they have to use these like religious methods depending on the monster that they have to capture or kill or whatever. It's very cool. They have to like say these like prayers or whatever in order to contain these beasts.
I think it's a cool blend.
This is a cool one. Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of what I've seen of Jujutsu Kaisen, where it's sort of like modern day Japan, modern Tokyo. But a lot of similarities where it's like there's a broken shrine at the start of Jujutsu Kaisen and of the end in this chapter 1. There's like a shrine that they go and investigate. I will say that do I get the main character's name? Yeah. Toya Tatsumori. So he's the main character. I think he's decently well characterized here. I think this is a funny moment at the start where she's like, my son's still in there. And he's like, I'm sorry. I'm afraid I can't guarantee your son's safety. I suggest you prepare for the worst. And everyone's like, bro, you can't fucking say that. He's like,
I think he is the only developed character in the first chapter. But you can tell that he's like pretty anti-authority and earnest and honest to a fault.
Yeah, sometimes. He's got the kind of pragmatic, it's, in my opinion, it's kind of like an immature way to look at the world, where it's like, I was like this in high school, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, I say shitty things to everybody because it's the truth. Like I just tell the truth and I don't hold back. I think his comes from more of not that rebellious teenager kind of shitty angle. But he, again, I think this line he says here describes a lot about him. He says like, if words of comfort could save lives, I'd be more than happy to say them. So he's very much sort of like I'm not going to give you platitudes. I'm not going to speak kind words. I'm going to go in there and do it and save them.
I'm going to give you the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is still kind of rebellious teen energy.
A little bit, yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
A little edgy, a little edgy.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's like the truth, and that's what people like. As a reader, we like that. But I think this is not a good vibe to have in real life.
No, in real life, everyone would fucking hate this guy. Yeah, because we meet Shohei Narumi, who's like his glasses, second in command type guy. And then we also meet Yukiharu Tatewaki. We don't get much from them. I wish we got a little bit more. I think that would have improved my opinion of this chapter 1 if we got some more from those two. They're just kind of barely play off the main character, like not even. I don't know. I couldn't tell you anything about either of their personalities, at all.
We just don't know anything about them. Yeah, they haven't been given anything yet.
Yeah. But we find out kind of at the end, it's like, oh, there was a shrine that was supposed to be protecting it. Some delinquents came by. We don't know if that means that either one of the delinquents had magical powers. That means that they could break the magical seals, or the magical seals had lost power. Both are bad ideas. So they're kind of like, oh, what's going on here? Something's going on. They get kind of called away. I actually think this scene was maybe my favorite of the whole thing, which was the MC here kind of talking to his, I guess, like administrative commander, his boss of some kind, or a boss. And his boss, he's sort of like, sir, there's been a lot of these, there's been more Bell Beast attacks this month. There's some things going on. We need to investigate it. And he's sort of like, don't kick up mud, like take it easy. Don't worry about it. Like, if you push on this, I'll call HR on your ass. And this is where his kind of rebellious attitude, I think, is a little bit more fun and interesting, where he's like using HR matter. But using HR matters as leverage to force your subordinates into compliance is a clear sign of utter managerial incompetence. He's literally just like, you suck. He's like, also, I'll continue investigating in my own free time, regardless of what the top brass has to say, which I think is a great call out of like, I'm going to do this no matter what you say. So,
and these guys, and it's kind of cool. You also see like this holy exorcist organization is bogged down by bureaucratic bullshit, just like every other organization.
Yeah. Typical Japanese bureaucracy, I would say.
Just worldly, this is true everywhere. But yeah, no, it's interesting to see that they aren't like this holy order of knights or something like that. They're just the cops
Yeah, I mean, quite literally, what this story is we essentially see there's magic, but some cops find a Bale Beast attack. They call the special forces. Essentially, the special forces cops show up, take care of it, try to figure out the issue, and then get called away to another issue. And then the special forces guy talks back to his boss, and that's the end of the chapter. Which is like this is very very military coded for sure, which again I think is part of the cool world building is the kind of military meets magical, I think, moments. But yeah, I mean, and that's essentially the end of the chapter. So yeah, I do like the MC. We talk about I think he's a protagonist. He goes and gets stuff done. I think that's what I like about him. He's kind of an asshole, I guess, because he just kind of talks back to everybody. So I think that's an interesting angle.
He is kind of an asshole, but I don't dislike that. I think that's like a kind of an interesting trait about him.
Yeah,
but it's kind of like the only trait we know about him. I think really you should focus on the characters in your chapter 1, because in order for me to care about world building, I need to care about the characters first, so I care about the world.
Yeah,
it can't go in the opposite direction in my eyes.
Yeah, very, very few stories or even types of stories are carried by their plot before characters. I think really there's like things like detective mysteries are much more plot forward than character forward. But even in that case, the most popular mysteries are still carried by the characters, because it's stuff like Sherlock Holmes and
Hercule Poirot.
Yeah, exactly. Poirot is what I was going to say. Like those, like there's a character that you love and are familiar with who is still carrying through that mystery, which is more plot focused. So yeah, I definitely agree that I would have liked more character stuff here, and I would have wished that the world building was handled a little bit more. I just think you just don't need those first 6 pages. Like
you don't. Yeah, you're right. It didn't
I don't care that like there was an uprising and these people established other thing. It's like, who cares? There's police, there's magical special forces. That's what I needed to know to get through that first chapter.
And I could care, but tell me about it later when I do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
even the start of chapter 2, you could put that stuff, right? Like, oh, okay, I've been shown, cool, what's going on in this world? I'm interested. It's interesting. And then you tell me, okay, here's what's going on. So, yeah.
I think people care about things when they are invested, but you need to get that investment first.
Yeah.
Like I would be happy to read like 6 pages of One Piece world building, but that's because I'm quite invested, right? I love the characters, so I'd be happy to learn more about the world. But I think like you can't just start with an info dump like that. It's just not like I truly don't. I won't remember it. I'd like if you point at like specific details or ask me about specific details about spellcasters, like I read it, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's. Like, I mean, like it has a lot of issues. 1, it is an info dump. 2, it's not a very good info dump. 3, it's an info dump full of stuff that is just Japan but changed, modern day Japan but changed for no reason. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a weird one, I guess. Is how I feel.
Yeah, it is a weird one, because I think the thing that maybe we're both hitting on is that we both just actively disliked those first 6 pages, and then the rest of it was like pretty okay, I would say. Like not bad, but
exactly.
Pretty good.
That's how I feel about it.
Yeah. So yeah, a weird middling thing. Anything else? Any other details or anything stand out to you on Imperial Cabinet here?
No, it's one of those. It's one of these series where I feel like I still don't know anything about it because I don't know the characters, and because that makes or breaks it, right?
For us, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. I think chapter 2 will tell us more about how we feel about the series.
Yeah, definitely curious to check out chapter 2 and 3. I also wasn't really pulled in by this sort of quote unquote mystery that was introduced. The sort of like, oh, how did this shrine get defiled? Like, I don't know. I get that it's kind of a mystery.
It's very small potatoes kind of feeling.
Well, and like we just sort of don't kind of know enough of why that's a big deal yet. So I don't know.
Yeah. I guess we'll see.
We'll see. Curious. Not bad, but certainly not good either. So we'll see. Yeah, Imperial Cabinet. That's by Fumiji Yuba. So, all right, let's talk about Chainsaw Man, chapter 174. This chapter is called Aging.
I'll take this one.
Go for it.
Yeah, so basically, this chapter is, I think, maybe the funniest chapter of Chainsaw Man for me, because it was so goofy. Basically, this is right after the Denji, they're trying to capture Denji / Chainsaw Man, or bait Denji / Chainsaw Man into like killing devils, but he killed the ear devil last chapter, and that removed humanity's ears. But it showed that they made contract with another devil who punched Denji in the stomach so hard that he puked ears back out. So everyone has ears again. And in that chapter, there was a panel of an elephant with no ears, kind of showing the audience that all ears are gone now. Anyway, ears are back, and we're in this boardroom where they are discussing like public safety and what happened with the ears.
Yeah.
And this new contract devil that basically wants to die. It wants to be erased by Chainsaw Man in exchange for, I believe, like 10,000 children.
Yes.
Like he wants to kill 10,000 children.
10,000 children with Japanese citizenship between infancy and 9 years old in front of mirrors.
Yeah. And the old fogies at the head of the government are like, I don't know about, like, one of them is like, I don't know about this. And another old fart's like, nah, let's do it.
It's like, he literally threatens his children. He's like, you have 4 children, right? And he's like, I can't do it. He's like, you have 4 kids, right? He's like, I can't do it.
Like this devil, I'm forgetting, is it the concept of aging, or
it's
is it
the aging devil? Yeah.
Yeah.
It says, the aging devil has no attachment to life. Depending on the terms of the contract, it's willing to be eaten and erased by Chainsaw Man.
So these fucks this old fuck who is afraid of dying is like, yeah, fuck the kids, just feed them to the devil, and I won't have to die. And the chick we all hate makes the call to go ahead and sacrifice the children, and then in the next panel she doesn't have a mouth, and then nobody has a mouth,
and then the elephant doesn't have a mouth,
which is just the funniest gag.
So funny. Yeah.
The ear gag makes sense for the elephant, but cutting back to the elephant without a mouth as well is just peak comedy.
It's wild and gonzo. Yeah.
It's so stupid. And then you see Chainsaw Man skewering the mouth devil in an alleyway somewhere. Also, Chainsaw Man doesn't have a mouth anymore.
Yeah.
Just hilarious. I'm sure he'll puke it back up here in a sec, but because characters need to talk.
And that's the interesting thing is that Chainsaw Man did this because he saw like, oh, I erased ears. That's what I wanted to do. And then they made me puke it back up. It's like, okay, well, I can't puke it up if I don't have a mouth. So he erases his mouth. Oh, like, I think that's what he's doing, right?
I thought he was just berserking, but that's a good point. I guess that is what he's doing. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, true.
And some people who are smarter or paying more attention than me, so this last page has 4 things listed. It says octopus, mouth, snow, and bitterness erased. Each of those things has hurt Denji, I guess, is the easiest way to say it. The octopus guy was fighting him. I think that's kind of obvious. Denji has a lot of mouth trauma from part 1. He got his mouth barfed in. He got his tongue bit out by someone. Those 2, I think, were the ones that I remember. Snow, he has sort of PTSD from having, spoilers for part 1, having to kill, what's his name?
Oh, the snowball fight. Yeah.
Yeah, the snowball fight, which is like a wonderful storytelling part that is also absolutely terrible and sad. And clearly Denji still like thinks about that. And he's like, well, getting rid of snow. And then bitterness, someone mentioned that there were a couple of times.
Right now.
Well, and there were a couple times where Denji tasted things that were bitter and didn't like them. So I thought that was an interesting thing being called out by the community there. I think pretty smart that, I think Denji is, or Chainsaw Man, who maybe people kind of were referring to them as Pochita. Like Pochita is trying to help Denji, I think, by eating these things. Might be kind of what's going on at the end of the day.
I don't think Pochita is around. Like, because didn't he exit scene left at the end of Chainsaw Man Part 1?
Yeah, I don't know what the rules of devils fully are. They have not really been explained. I don't think they exist in a kind of like a list that you can read.
We just haven't seen him in Part 2. So and Denji is like lonelier than ever. I just don't think Pochita is like around anymore.
Well, I mean, I would wonder if Pochita, the sort of nice thing, is not around, but maybe the sort of primal Chainsaw Man, the killer that everyone knows and talks about throughout all the parts. Maybe it's that is Pochita, and that is what's sort of manifesting here. So maybe that's a version of him or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious about that, and I'm curious about Fake Saw Man, who is like both helpful and kind of a hindrance, and murdered that one girl at the beginning I'll never forget. I don't know. I'm curious about a lot of stuff. Either way, it's a wild ride.
Have we talked about the Chainsaw Man theory that is increasing in popularity? Have we talked about that on the podcast? I don't remember if we talked about it last time or not.
I don't know.
This idea that Pochita and Denji, Chainsaw Man is not the Chainsaw Devil. And so I guess I'll go over it quickly. The basic idea is that Chainsaw Man is the birth devil, I think.
Yeah, we've talked about this.
You were talking about that? Okay. Chainsaw Man is the birth devil, and then the other Chainsaw Man in this theory, if it's true, would essentially be the Chainsaw Devil, or potentially the fear of Chainsaw Man Devil or something. I don't know.
I could see it with the umbilical cords and all that around his neck,
and the sort of like
the intestines
and like unbirthing things by consuming them, or like making them some. I don't
know. I don't think that's it. And I only say that because nobody knows that obscure fact about chainsaws, and I think that it'll be like kind of a weird.
That does.
I don't know if it's a satisfying.
Okay, you say
it's a satisfying plot point.
You say nobody knows that, but if Tatsuki Fujimoto wrote down, hey, did you know that chainsaws used to be used to like help cut women's legs open to help them give birth? That seems like the kind of factoid that Tatsuki Fujimoto would know, doesn't it?
It's still it's not satisfying. At least reading it from a theory, maybe Fujimoto can spin that in a way.
I think there's more to be shown.
Yeah. It's one of those fan theories that I think is a stretch, even though it makes sense, just because I find it inherently unsatisfying.
We aren't there yet.
I don't know. Yeah,
definitely.
It can be explained in a way that makes it cool or interesting, but we aren't there yet. You're right.
Yeah, it is something I think that needs a little bit more revealing and prodding and information to get there. Because if the next chapter they come out, they're just like Chainsaw Man's the birth devil, blah blah. Everyone's gonna be like, huh, what? Like without any explanation, or very little true foreshadowing. So yeah, I think I agree on that.
But yeah, it was just a fun chapter. I think
it's a weird one.
Elephant gag is like so funny.
It's so If the elephant doesn't show up in the next chapter,
exactly. Cut back to the elephant anytime anything gets raised.
Yeah, for everything.
Yeah.
Do you think so? This chapter reminds me a lot of some of the parts in part 1 with Makima. Two parts kind of stood out to me. One was the part where she sacrifices the murderers. And then the other part was she talks to, is it the president of the United States who she talks to about the gun devil stuff?
And they sacrifice like 2% of like American lifespans or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I think she did that with a bunch of leaders, right? Because gun devil attacks like everywhere instantly. I think when she like makes that deal. So
yeah, I think so. It is very much like that, where they're just willing to make sacrifices for power.
Yeah.
One thing that I found interesting is it's go back to where we were just a second ago. It was how Chainsaw Man alters reality. It's not just erasure, because erasure in its current sense is like it won't make sense to erase something that we've used forever or had forever, like an ear, without revising like memory of what it is. So it's like they haven't heard of ears before. They have no clear memories of it, but there's like Chainsaw Man rewrites history to where reality without ears up till this point makes sense to some capacity, and it's sloppy, but it like works for the reality that Chainsaw Man revised. So I think that's an interesting point to anything Chainsaw Man erase, like Nazis, like
Yeah, he
nukes.
erased, like, what are the things they mentioned in part 1? Like atomic weapons, I think, and Nazis.
Yeah.
Like, there was a couple other things they mentioned that I don't remember. Was it like the World War, like all the World Wars? I don't remember, something like that. They like the idea of, yeah, I don't know.
So it's not that they didn't happen. It's just that they no longer exist, and everyone doesn't think they existed. So it's like history is rewritten altogether. From this
World
point
War
forward.
II, AIDS, and nuclear weapons are the 3 things that Makima mentions in part 1.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just an interesting point on how Chainsaw Man alters reality by erasing things and spitting it back up.
Well, and it does. Yeah. I'll say it like this: it doesn't necessarily back up the Chainsaw Man as the birth devil. It doesn't necessarily back that up, but I think it does lead to interesting questions of if Chainsaw Man is just fear of chainsaws embodied. How does he have all these powers? How can he do this? Why is, like, you know, a fear of swords, or like the gun? He's like kind of stronger than the Gun Devil, and the Gun Devil was like incredibly strong. That's like a massive fear. But the Gun Devil,
I don't know if he's stronger than the Gun Devil.
Well, I mean, I guess look at it like this: the Gun Devil's power was it shot a bunch and killed people. So why can Chainsaw Man erase ideas like that? To me, that I don't think that necessarily leads us to him being the birth devil, but I just think that it's like that question is interesting. How does that work?
I'm curious too. And it not only erases the idea, it revises everyone's concept of reality.
No one knows what it was ever in the past.
Exactly.
Or anything. So it's super weird.
It's very odd. But no, I do think Gun Devil is probably the strongest devil we'll see, just because of, like, it, like, killed, like, millions of people in, like, 8 seconds. That's insane. That's nuts. That's, like...
highest kill count devil so far, for sure.
Yeah. I loved its design, too. It's just, like, a big eldritch gun.
Yeah. The chapter in part 1 with the reading all the names and the Gun Devil, that is, like...
That is so cool.
One of the greatest manga chapters, like one of the coolest ideas of all time. Like, that's so cool.
I know. And it's just like an amalgamation of skulls and a huge gun nozzle. And that was like 10% of the Gun Devil or something.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly. It was like not even full power. It was like, we'll give you like 2% for, or what is it? Makima says it's like 10% for 10 minutes or like 5 seconds or something. But
yeah, so something like that for like an X amount of the population.
Yeah, crazy. Cool. I mean, anything else on Chainsaw Man? Any I like a lot of times I like to ask on manga chapters, like, any predictions, but like Chainsaw Man is fucking impossible to predict. Like absolutely impossible. So it's like, what's going to happen next? Who knows?
I have one prediction.
Okay.
We'll see the elephant one more time and then never again. We'll get the elephant because the third time will be the funniest, and then we'll leave it at that.
I'm going to piggyback off that. Chainsaw Man erases the idea of elephants in the next couple of chapters.
Oh, that would be so good.
And
it's
just get a blank
empty
page.
Plane.
It's just it's just the empty page of Africa.
Empty savannah. Yeah, that's so good. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh man.
All right.
I would love it if your prediction came true.
That would be funny. I think that's like the next thing. It's like, you got rid of his ears. You got his ears back. You got rid of his mouth. You got his mouth back. Elephants are gone now.
Yeah, that would be so funny.
We'll see. Anything else on Chainsaw Man?
Nope.
Cool. Let's talk manga news a little bit. There's actually some stuff happening. A lot of stuff happening next week, but you'll be listening to this. So this upcoming weekend, we're going to get a lot of stuff. So here's what's coming. Weekly Shonen Jump issue 39 has a bunch of stuff for us. First one is One Piece live action is going to tease a chopper-like silhouette. That is in the upcoming Weekly Shonen Jump issue. I'm on the edge of my seat. Here it is.
We go, boys.
Yep. The most difficult thing to do in One Piece, in my opinion, adapting Chopper. We're going to see what it's like. We'll see.
I can't see a universe where this looks good.
We said the same thing about the One Piece live action before it happened, and it turned out pretty good. So I'm gonna
prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
I know,
I'd be happy to eat crow.
Yeah,
make Chopper look good.
I agree though. Of the difficult things to adapt in One Piece, that even the things that they executed really well in part one, Chopper I think is the most difficult thing in One Piece to execute. So we'll see.
I agree. I don't know how you, but One Piece is goofy. Just make a cute CGI reindeer that looks like Detective Pikachu, and I'll be okay with it.
I think
you know what?
The one that most people talked about that I thought was the great idea is like it should literally just be a Muppet, like. Yeah, just a Muppet.
I'd hate it.
It would be stupid, but it would also be fun. I don't know.
It would take me out of it every scene Chopper was in. Like, if there's any stakes, and then Chopper's like, "Hey, Luffy," with a little puppet, and
it's
I'd be
great.
like,
I don't know.
"No, I'm out."
What
fuck
about
this.
What about a Muppet like Fozzie Bear, where it's like he's a Muppet, right? But he's not like he has like a guy with real hands, kind of moving his hands and stuff. Like, I don't know.
Okay, I'd like you to picture this. The Robin scene where she's like, it's a really emotional scene where she's like, "I want to live," and all the Straw Hats are there, and you look at all of their cool poses and faces, and then there's Fozzie Bear over there being like, "You got this, Robin." It's like, no, it would be fucked. It would be fucked, bro.
Yeah. All right, more things in the next issue, 39 of WSJ. So Miura Koji, who is the mangaka of Blue Box, and Matsura Kento, the artist of Phantom Seer, are going to be collaborating on a new romantic youth one-shot titled Doku Doku that is next week. So that'll be interesting. I think Blue Box is one of the most well-written romances I've read in a long time, and I really like that, and I'm really glad it is in Weekly Shonen Jump. I do think that could be wrapping up in the next year and a half, maybe. So I wonder if this is planting a seed potentially for that combo to come back. And I don't know that much about Phantom Seer. Did you ever read that, Gautam?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Phantom Seer.
Yeah, I have to like Google it real quick. I think it was okay. It ran for it was like a 6 months and canceled thing.
Okay.
Early 2000. Yeah. So. One of those canceled things. Art looked fine, but yeah, we'll see. I'm curious because I think Miura Koji, the Blue Box author, I think they're really good. So, and I'm interested. Their art I think is good, but definitely not the kind of outstanding part of Blue Box. I think the writing generally is the better part. So
I actually like the Blue Box character designs.
I think the style of it is great. Yeah, I mean it's not bad. I just think that it's I think the writing just outshines it is what I would say.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. We are also in the upcoming thing going to get an announcement, or I guess it was leaked. Witch Watch anime is here officially. This is going to be by Biberi Studios. So they did Quintessential Quintuplets Season 2 and 100 Girlfriends. I know 100 Girlfriends was received pretty well. Quint Season 2 decently well. They don't have a whole lot of things under their belt, but I think 100 Girlfriends and Quintessential Quintuplets are in the same vein as Witch Watch. I would say not super, action heavy, much more slice of life, kind of slow character romance, fun stuff. Witch Watch has a little bit more fantastical elements, but yeah, it's just a comedy. So
it is, I guess, technically a rom-com, but like 90% calm.
Yeah. We do have the announcement of the cast also. So Morihito Otogi, who is he's the half ogre main character here. He's being voiced by Ryota Suzuki. So this is the voice of Yu Ishigami from Kaguya. And also,
perfect.
Also going to be playing Heisuke in upcoming Sakamoto Days, the sniper guy. So
okay.
That's a good one. Niko Akatsuki, this is the female lead character, I believe, is going to be voiced by Rina Kawaguchi. She seems fairly new. She has a couple of non-lead parts under her belt, but nothing that I really could recognize.
It's a big role. Cool.
Yeah. Nemu Miao is going to be voiced by Tomori Kusunoki, who was Makima from Chainsaw Man. All these people have lots of other things under their belt. I'm just picking kind of the most recent and relevant things.
I just realized Nemu's last name is Meow. It's funny. She turns into a cat. That's like her one ability.
Nemu Meow. Yeah. 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 I'm trying to read Japanese without much practice on these names. And then Kanshi.
No, I mean, that's like the intentional joke. I didn't know. Yeah. Huh.
For sure. And then Kanshi Kazamatsuri is going to be voiced by Kohei Amasaki. He was Ken Tachibana, the lead from Heavenly Delusion, and lots of other minor roles. So seems like a pretty stacked good cast for a comedy series, but it is Weekly Shonen Jump.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be so good.
Yeah, I think this one might be one that's fun to consume as an anime over manga, but I should get back to reading it. I read like 12 chapters and need to read more. So
it is a really good manga, though.
Yeah.
You should definitely if you're like hoping for something light and just infinitely creative, that's Witch Watch.
Yeah, I should check it out, especially with the anime coming up. That's premiering in April next year, I believe, right? Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, in April. So okay, one more thing for the next the upcoming Weekly Shonen Jump chapter. Jujutsu Kaisen is reaching the climax of the final battle. The climax of the final battle is in issue 39. That is the upcoming Sunday here. Cool. Do we still think this is going to end before the end of the year?
I have no idea.
It's kind of close.
I'm so like this is like the most popular thing that I'm not reading, right? Yeah. So I have no idea. I have no perspective.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I mean, get in the comments.
Someone let us know. Like, how does it feel right now? Does it feel like it'll wrap up this year?
Yeah, because
or is this like a multi-year finale like Hero Academia?
Yeah, so after 39, they'll have about 10, 13, somewhere between 12 and 15 more chapters before the end of the year. So yeah, I mean, get in the comments, let us know if you think Jujutsu Kaisen is going to make it for the end of the year. I think we had some of our yearly predictions involved with, does that manga end this year or not? So I'm curious. I don't know if it'll be last chapter, 2 or 3 resolution, wash our hands and we're done or not. So
yeah.
All right, that's it for that next Weekly Shonen Jump thing. A little bit of other news. Hokkaido Gals are super adorable. This is a romance that is ending in 2 chapters. This one used to be really good at the start, and I fell off it pretty hard because it got pretty bad. And from what I have seen from the comments, it has remained pretty bad. So,
got it. Yeah, I fell off of it after there was more than one love interest.
Yeah, I stayed on for a little bit more. She like the main girl like moves away and then moves back, and it was like I don't really remember. It was just a bunch of weird like. Talking about like romances with like contrived drama, like forced stuff. That this is a big one that has a lot of that. So
right,
yeah. And the other 2 things I want to take note of, just some stuff I saw on Twitter. Damon's The Shadow Realm, good old Yomi no Sugai, my personal favorite. 3 million copies it has reached with only 7 volumes. That's about 425,000 volumes or copies per volume. That is a massive amount. That is very big. And the other sales
deserves more.
Yeah. Well, and the crazy thing is, I always forget, and then I'll look at the sales figures, and it's like, oh yeah, Arslan Sinki is still going on. Like, she still does that. Like, I think weekly.
Right.
Maybe they're both monthly. I don't know, but she still draws that. So yeah, she has 2 ongoing series, and Arslan Sinki also sells like top 4, top 5, sells like hotcakes. So yeah, she's crazy proficient. She's my favorite.
She's just a genius.
Yeah, pretty much. And the other thing is. Call out here for Dungeon Meshi, sort of post anime, is selling incredibly well. The numbers that I found are from like 5 months ago, but the numbers I found there were that there were 14 million copies as of March, and that's an increase of 4 million copies because the series ended late last year, and then the anime premiered in January, and then it sold 4 million more copies. So yeah, that's a substantial increase. 40%, probably more by this time.
And that's just that was as of 5 months ago.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a like 50%. Like literally, it sold 10 million copies, and then the anime came out, and it probably sold 5 million more copies of the series. So
yeah, well deserved. Honestly,
yeah,
this is like just such a phenomenal. I don't know if I have a better fantasy manga than Delicious in Dungeon / Dungeon Meshi.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting.
I like it even better than like Frieren at the Funeral.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I like Frieren a lot, but a Dungeon Meshi just being complete, it's a little bit more cohesive so far. But yeah, we're getting.
It reminds me of D&D. Like through and through, it is like our goofy party of misfits save the day with their own goofy means. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
I just love it. It's amazing.
We are this past year and upcoming there's kind of an 18-month block here. We're kind of getting spoiled by like essentially the 3 greatest straight fantasy manga ever are all going to be anime by like this time next year. Because we got Delicious in Dungeon and Frieren late last year, early this year, and then we are going to get not Little Witch Academia, Witch Hat Atelier is going to be next year early, and those three are sort of like high fantasy manga like return. Like those have absolutely ruled fantasy manga of the last 5 years or so, I would say.
Dude, yeah, I can't wait for Witch Hat. It's going
to be so good. Yeah, I really, really hope that they can capture this sort of how fantastic and wonderful the art and paneling is in that series. I hope that they figure out a way to do that in animation. So,
dude, did I show you the Witch Hat poster I bought in Japan?
It was like the one
Witch Hat thing I could find. It's also beautiful and it is art.
Yeah, I think you showed it to me, but
yeah, I'll send it over to you. We can just post it in like the description or something.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And cool. Yeah, I think that's about it for news.
Yeah, I think that's it. Let's see. One more thing. I'll go first this week. I wanted to just briefly mention the chapter of Kindergarten Wars, because this is continued one of my favorite things to read every week. Yeah, I mean, just like very kind of minor spoilers, but the overarching plot of Kindergarten Wars has not really come into full effect, I would say, until this past chapter, kind of in the same way that like Dandadan did 2 or 3 weeks ago. All we've really known is that these kind of for hire assassins and thugs are there to protect this girl named Lila, who is at this kindergarten. That is kind of the whole reason they're there. They protect the other people because they get paid to do it, but really they're there to protect Lila. And we learned in this latest chapter that Lila Clark is the name of a person who has killed the most people in history. And then it kind of just ends on that bombshell. And it shows a picture of someone who looks like a more grown-up Lila with the principal and the nurse, the school nurse. So interesting developments in that series. I want to give it a shout out. I think everyone should be reading that. I think it's a really, really exceptional series. And I'm excited
it's a Makima situation where she's reincarnated after she dies.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of sort of like borderline fantasy elements in how fantastical stuff is. So yeah, I don't know, but I'm interested. I am someone who really likes having an overarching story to follow, even with all the sort of side stories going on. So this really grabs at me, in the same way that the Dandadan stuff did a couple weeks ago, where it's like, solidifying a singular story to go through. So yeah, I just wanted to give it a shout out. I thought that was a great one. Didn't want to bring it to the whole pod, but did want to talk about it just briefly there. So
nice.
Cool. And then tell me what you've been doing.
I've been playing Cult of the Lamb. It is a fun game where you make a cult, and then there's like roguelike combat on top of that. The roguelike combat sections are like, it's pretty basic, and the combat's not super interesting. I'd say it's the least interesting part about Cult of the Lamb.
Mm-hmm.
The cult management stuff is actually quite fun. To the point where I actually like don't even want to do the roguelike stuff.
Yeah,
even though that's why I played it in the first place. I'd rather do the cult management stuff. It's also like one of the few games where I'm like one of these dudes who is incredibly uncomfortable doing evil things in video games even. Like I'll pick the good option because I end up like sympathizing with a character and I feel bad being evil.
No.
But Cult of the Lamb, I feel like unabashedly evil and I'm okay with that. It's because like there are like certain doctrines you can do where you can make your cult like see ritual sacrifice as a good thing. And dying of natural causes is a bad thing. So my cult thinks like dying of old age is like a terrible thing and they freak out. But being sacrificed to a tentacle monster is like the cool way to go. Like it's like the holy way to go. Yeah. So I'm just like killing all the old. And like my cult's like very happy. They're like, wow, you really did right by them.
That's awesome.
I'm like, okay, yeah, nice. So it's like rewarding me and not making me feel even the slightest bit guilty for being like terrible and evil. Because my cult thinks I'm doing like cool moves, like real gamer moves, killing all the old.
Yeah, when this one came out, this was I watched a lot of streamers play this and like, you know, try to get your name as one of their followers or something. But Yeah, it seems fun.
Yeah,
I've heard
it's fun.
I've heard the same as what you said, where it's sort of like the combat elements and the rogue stuff is like not that great, but the other part of it is the fun.
And so yeah, exactly. And I'm finding like even though like the combat's like basic and not like the best, it doesn't matter because it's like the experience overall is very fun. So I'd still say it's a good game.
Awesome. Cool. Anything else this week? Or we?
No, I'm all good.
Cool. Let's get out of here then. Hey, thank you again, everyone, for listening or watching. Don't forget to leave us feedback, comments, upvotes, like, subscribe, thumbs up, all that jazz. Check out Twitter and Patreon, linked in the description. And thank you for being with us yet again this week.
Goodbye.
And don't forget to read more manga.